Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to the Sri Vidya Temple's class in learning to chant Sri Devi Mahatmyam. Today we're starting with chapter 5. So we'll chant the Ganapati prayer and then we'll start. Om Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Viknopa Shantaye. So chapter 5 is one of the longer chapters, but it's actually fairly easy in some respects because much of it is another one of these Devi stutis. Remember, there's 4 different sort of Devi stutis or songs embedded in Devi Mahatmyam. And those are always kind of fun to come across because they have a lot of life and flow in them. And this one in particular, most of the shlokas repeat a certain pattern and repeat the same line. So it's pretty easy to pick up. So hopefully chapter 5 will go a little bit quickly. Okay, so Suji, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure.
All right, so, oops. Sorry, give me a moment. I just went to a totally different place in my document. Okay, there we are. Om Klim Rishirovacha.
Om Klim Rishiruvacha. Om Klim Rishiruvacha.
Pura Shambhani Shambhabhya.
Pura Shumbhani Shumbhabhyam. Pura Shumbhani Shumbhabhyam.
Excuse me. Masurabhyam Shachipate.
Masurabhyam Shachipatehe. Masurabhyam Shachipatehe.
Pura Shambhani Shambhabhyam Asurabhyam Shachipate.
Pura Shumbhani Shumbhabhyam Shachipatehe. Pura Shumbhani Shumbhabhyam Shachipatehe.
Trailokyam Yajnabhagascha.
Trailokyam Yajnabhagascha. Trailokyam Yajnabhagascha.
Hrutamadabalaśrayat.
Hrutamadabalaśrayat. Hrutamadabalaśrayat.
Trailokyam Yajnabhagascha Hrutamadabalaśrayat.
Trailokyam Yajnabhagascha Hrutamadabalaśrayat. Trailokyam Yajnabhagascha Hrutamadabalaśrayat.
Taveva suryatam tattva.
Taveva suryatan tadvat. Taveva suryatan tadva.
दधिकारं तथैन्दवम्
दधिकारन्तथैन्दवम् दधिकारन्तथैन्दवम्
तावेव सूर्यतां तद्वदधिकारं तथैन्दवम्
तावेव सूर्यतान् तद्वदधिकारं तथैन्दवम् तावेव सूर्यतान् तद्वदधिकारं तथैन्दवम्
कौबेरमथ याम्यं च
कौबेरमथ याम्यञ्च कौबेरमथ याम्यञ्च
चक्राते वरुणस्य च
चक्राते वरुणस्य च चक्राते वरुणस्य च
कौबेरमथ याम्यं च चक्राते वरुणस्य च
कौबेरमथ याम्यञ्च चक्राते वरुणस्य च कौबेरमथ याम्यञ्च चक्राते वरुणस्य च
तावेव पवनार्धिं च
तावेव पवनर्धिं च तावेव पवनर्धिं च
चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च
चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च
तावेव पवनार्धिं च चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च
तावेव पवनर्धिं च चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च तावेव पवनर्धिं च चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च
ततो देवा विनिर्धूता ततो देवा विनिर्धूता
ततो देवा विनिर्धूता ततो देवा विनिर्धूता
भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः
भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः
ततो देवा विनिर्धूता भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः
ततो देवा विनिर्धूता भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः ततो देवा विनिर्धूता भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः
कृताधिकारास्त्रिदशास्
हृताधिकारास्त्रिदशा हृताधिकारास्त्रिदशा
ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः
ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः
कृताधिकारास्त्रिदशास्ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः
हृताधिकारास्त्रिदशास्ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः हृताधिकारास्त्रिदशास्ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः
महासुराभ्यां तां देवीं
महासुराभ्यां तां देवीं महासुराभ्यान्तान् देवीं
संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम्
संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम् संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम्
महासुराभ्यां तां देवीं संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम्
महासुराभ्यान्तान् देवीं संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम् महासुराभ्यान्तान् देवीं संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम्.
Okay, now I'll go back to the beginning and just I'll chant those shlokas as a review. ॐ क्लीं ऋषिरुवाच पुरा शम्भनिशम्भाभ्यामसुराभ्यां शचीपतेः त्रैलोक्यं यज्ञभागाश्च हृतामदबलाश्रयात् तावेव सूर्यतां तद्वदधिकारं दधैन्दवम् कौबेरमथयां यं च चक्राते वरुणस्य च तावेव पवनर्धिं च चक्रतुर्वह्नि कर्म च ततो देवा विनिर्धूता भ्रष्टराज्याः पराजिताः ऋताधिकारास्त्रिदशास्ताभ्यां सर्वे निराकृताः महासुराभ्यां तां देवीं संस्मरन्त्यपराजिताम्. Okay, would anyone else like to unmute themselves and chant the lines? Amma, you want to? Lata Auntie, did you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right, so starting with shloka 6. Tayasmakam varodatto.
Tayasmakam varodatto. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Amma.
Tayasmakam varodatto.
Good.
Can I repeat again?
Sure, go ahead.
Tayasmakam varodatto. Yada.
Okay, that's good. Yatha patsusmrutakhilaha.
Yada patsusmrutakhilaha. Yada patsusmrutakhilaha. Am I correct at pronunciation?
That's very close. In the word yatha,
Yatha.
instead of the, it's a ta sound, like a th in English.
Okay,
Yatha.
Yatha.
And then patsusmruta.
Patsusmruta khilaha.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll try that one part one more time. Yatha patsusmruta khilaha.
Yatha patsusmruta khilaha. Yatha patsusmruta khilaha.
That's good. You can practice it on your own and it'll be more natural.
That's word is a little tricky.
Yes, yes. Definitely many sounds and words in Devi Mahatmyam are very tricky. That's why we all have to practice, myself included. This is definitely one that takes a lot of practice for sure. All right, so now I'll try chanting the whole line. Tayasmakam varo tatto yatha patsusmruta khilaha.
तयास्माकं वरो दत्तो यथा पत्सु स्मृताखिलाः तयास्माकं वरो दत्तो यथा पत्सु स्मृताखिलाः.
Good. Okay, next line. Bhavatam nashayashyami.
भवतां नाशयिष्यामि no yata
Correct.
नाशयिष्यामि
That's correct.
भवतां नाशयिष्यामि
Okay,
भवतां नाशयिष्यामि
that's it.
तत्क्षणा
Now I'll do the next part. Takshanat paramapadaha.
तत्क्षणात् परमापदः तत्क्षणात् परमापदः.
Good. Now I'll do the whole line. Bhavatam nashayashyami takshanat paramapadaha.
भवतां नाशयिष्यामि तत्क्षणात् परमापदः भवतां नाशयिष्यामि तत्क्षणात् परमापदः.
Good. Now the next line. Iti krutva matim deva.
इति कृत्वा मतिं देवा इति कृत्वा मतिं देवा
Himavantam nageshwaram.
हिमवन्तं नगेश्वरं हिमवन्तं नगेश्वरम्.
Good. Iti krutva matim deva himavantam nageshwaram.
इति कृत्वा मतिं देवा हिमवन्तं नगेश्वरम् इति कृत्वा मतिं देवा हिमवन्तं नगेश्वरम्.
Good. Jagmustatra tato devim.
जग्मुस्तत्र ततो देवीं जग्मुस्तत्र ततो देवीं
Vishnumayam pratushtuhu.
विष्णुमायां प्रतिष्ठुवुः विष्णुमायां प्रतिष्ठुवुः.
Jagmustatra tato devim Vishnumayam pratushtuhu.
जग्मुस्तत्र ततो देवीं विष्णुमायां व्रतुष्टुवुः. Am I correct? Ekta? Vratustu.
Correct. Pratushtu. Pratushtu.
Oh, vratustu. Jagmastatra tato devim Vishnumayam pratustuvuhu.
Good. Only thing is the very first
Jagmas,
word, jagmus. Jagmus.
Jagmas,
Tatra.
Jagmastatra tato devim Vishnumayam pratustuvuhu.
That's it. Okay.
Maybe I can practice.
That's okay. We all have to practice, no doubt. So then I'll just do this one line and then someone else can also repeat the lines. So next one. Deva uchuhu.
Can I do? Then Deva uchuhu, Deva uchuhu.
That's it. Okay, so you can mute yourself now, and anyone else would like to repeat the lines? Okay, first one was Lavanyama with her hand up. Okay, go ahead. All right, next one. So here's where it starts with the song, because Deva Uchuhu means and the gods said. So now the gods are beginning to sing. Okay. Namo Devyai Mahadevyai.
Namo Devyai Mahadevyai. Namo Devyai Mahadevyai.
Shivayai Satatam Namaha.
Shivayai Satatam Namaha. Shivayai Satatam Namaha.
Namo Devyai Mahadevyai Shivayai Satatam Namaha.
Namo Devyai Mahadevyai Shivayai Satatam Namaha. Namo Devyai Mahadevyai Shivayai Satatam Namaha.
Good. Namah Prakrityai Bhadrayai.
Namah Prakrityai Bhadrayai. Namah Prakrityai Bhadrayai.
Niyatah Pranatasmatam.
Niyatah Pranatasmatam. Niyatah Pranatasmatam.
Namah Prakrityai Bhadrayai Niyatah Pranatasmatam.
Namah Prakrityai Bhadrayai Niyatah Pranatasmatam. Namah Prakrityai Bhadrayai Niyatah Pranatasmatam.
Good. Raudrayai Namo Nityayai.
Raudrayai Namo Nityayai. Raudrayai Namo Nityayai.
Gauryai Dhatriyai Namo Namaha.
Gauryai Dhatrai Namo Namaha. Gauryai Dhatrai Namo Namaha.
Raudrayai Namo Nityayai Gauryai Dhatriyai Namo Namaha.
Raudrayai Namo Nityayai Gauryai Dhatrai Namo Namaha. Raudrayai Namo Nityayai Gauryai Dhatrai Namo Namaha.
Good. Jyotsnayai Chendurupenyai.
Jyotsnayai Chendurupinyai. Jyotsnayai Chendurupinyai.
Sukhayai Satatam Namaha.
Sukhayai Satatam Namaha. Sukhayai Satatam Namaha.
Jyotsnayai Chendurupenyai Sukhayai Satatam Namaha.
Jyotsnayai Chendurupinyai Sukhayai Satatam Namaha. Jyotsnayai Chendurupinyai Sukhayai Satatam Namaha.
Good. Well, now you can mute yourself for now, and I actually want to go back and I think it was shloka 6, and just review that up to where we did. So I'll chant by myself, starting from shloka 6. Tayasmakam varodatto yatha patsusmrutakhilaha bhavatam nashayashyami takshanat paramapadaha iti krutva matim deva himavantam nageshwaram jagmustatra tato devim vishnumayam pratushtuvoho deva uchuhu Namo Devyai Mahadevyai Shivayai Satatam Namaha Namah Prakrutyai Bhadrayai Niyatah Pranatasmatam Raudrayai Namo Nityayai Gauryai Dhatriyai Namo Namaha Jyotsnayai Chendurupenyai Sukhayai Satatam Namaha. Okay, Charu Auntie, did you want to go next? Okay. All right. So next line. Kalyanye pranatam vridhyai
Kalyanyai pranatam vrutyai Kalyanai pranatam vrutyai.
That's good. Just make sure in the first word, kalyanye. Kalyanye. Okay. Now the next part. Siddhye kurmo namo namaha.
Siddhyai kurmo namo namaha. Siddhyai kurmo namo namaha.
Good. Kalyanyai pranatam vridhyai siddhyai kurmo namo namaha.
Kalyanyai pranatam vrutyai siddhyai kurmo namo namaha. Kalyanyai pranatam vrutyai siddhyai kurmo namo namaha.
Good. And everyone notice the holding on ip in Kalyanye pranatam. Ye pranatam. Okay, next line. This one a little bit tricky. Nairatyai bhubhratam lakshmyai.
Nairutyai bhuprutam lakshmi. Nairutyai bhuprutam lakshmi.
That's good. So the tricky part in this line is that word nairatyai. So the way that Ramesh Natarajan Aya teaches that sound, where there's an R consonant followed by the R vowel, it's almost like you double an R sound. Nairatyai, nairatyai. And I've actually heard the Chalakere brothers chanting that, I think as part of some part of Mahanyasam, and that's also how they chant it. So that's good confirmation. Definitely we're not used to that, but that's how I learned to chant it. Nairatyai. So that's going to take some practice because our tongues are not used to doubling that R sound. So that will take a little while for you to get used to, but that's the goal. Nairatye. Okay, so now I'll go on to the next part. Sharvanyete namo namaha.
Sharvanyete namo namaha. Sharvanyete namo namaha.
Now the whole line. Nairatye bhubhratam lakshmyai sharvanyete namo namaha.
Nairatye bhuprutam lakshmi sharvanyete namo namaha. Nairatye bhuprutam lakshmi sharvanyete namo namaha.
Good. Now the next line. Durgayai durgaparayai.
Durgayai durgaparayai. Durgayai durgaparayai.
Sarayai sarvakarinyai.
Sarayai sarvakarinyai. Sarayai sarvakarinyai.
Durgayai durgaparayai. Sarayai sarvakarinyai.
Durgayai durgaparayai. Sarayai sarvakarinyai. Durgayai durgaparayai. Sarayai sarvakarinyai.
Good. Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai.
Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai. Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai.
Dhumrayai satatam namaha.
Dhumrayai satatam namaha. Dhumrayai satatam namaha.
Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai. Dhumrayai satatam namaha.
Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai. Dhumrayai satatam namaha. Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai. Dhumrayai satatam namaha.
Good. All right, now I'll do just those two shlokas. I'll do them by myself as review. Kalyanyai pranatam vridhyai siddhyai kurmo namo namaha. Nairattyai bhubhratam lakshmyai sharvanyai te namo namaha. Durgayai durgaparayai. Sarayai sarvakarinyai. Kyatyai tathaiva krishnayai. Dhumrayai satatam namaha. Okay, anyone else would like to repeat the lines? Okay, Amma, you can unmute yourself, please. Okay. Ati saumyati rautrayai. Atisaumyadirautrayai. Adisaumyadirautrayai. Good. Natastasyai namo namaha. Natastasyai namo namaha. Natastasyai namo namaha. Good. Atisaumyati rautrayai natastasyai namo namaha. Atisaumyati rautrayai natastasyai namo namaha. Adisaumyadi rautrayai natastasyai namo namaha. Good. And everyone notice the holding ati saumyati. So there's holding on the im in saumyati. Okay, next line. Namo jagat pratisthayai. Namo jagat pradishtayai. Namo jagat pradishtayai. Devyai krityai namo namaha. Devyai krityai namo namaha. Devyai krityai namo namaha. Good, now the whole line. Namo jagat pratisthayai devyai krityai namo namaha. Namo jagat pradishtayai devyai krityai namo namaha. Namo jagat pradishtayai devyai krityai namo namaha. Very good. The only thing I'll point out is in the word pratishtaye, that prati, that ti sound, that's like a T, like an English T. It sounded a little bit like you were saying more like a D, like a Devi D. Okay, so maybe after the class, we can explain the numbering system in the Tamil script, but just wanted to point that one out to you. Okay. All right, so then from now on, from this shloka for a whole bunch more, there's a very specific pattern, and this is always a fun part to get to when you're chanting, because it's a little bit of a break for your brain because of the repetition. So the pattern is that we're saying Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, and then something. So basically, and then namastasye, 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 namo namaha. So usually the main pattern is Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu something Rupena Samstita. So what this means is that the gods are saying that Devi who exists in all beings in the form of something, we bow to her, we bow again and again. We honor her, we offer our salutations at her lotus feet. So then what are all the things that Divine Mother exists as in all beings? So there's a number of things that are listed like buddhi rupena, so in the form of buddhi, which is like enlightened mind or intelligence. Nidra rupena, so in the form of nidra, which is like sleep or rest. Kshudha, I forget what kshudha means. So a whole bunch of different things like Shakti, energy, divine energy, Shanti, Jati, Lajja, modesty, Shanti, peace, Shraddha, like faith. So it's listing a whole bunch of things. So this is a really, philosophical part of the song. And it's very interesting if you get a chance to look at the meanings, just to think about what the gods are saying that Divine Mother exists as in all these different forms. And of course, Matru Rupena Samstita, so she exists as the mother in all beings. So all beings, whether male or female, whether animals or or plants or humans or whatever it may be, she exists as the mother. So this is a very interesting section. Okay, so now so one other thing to explain is that the way it's formatted in the documents that I've provided looks a little bit strange. And it's actually set up that way to make it easier when you're chanting this as part of Homa. Because most of the time in Devi Mahatmyam, when you're chanting as Homa, the Swaha, which is where the Ahuti is meant to be offered into the fire, comes at the end of a line or the end of a shloka. And there's very specific parts where that Swaha is meant to be chanted. That's why I've added the Swaha in all the places where it would normally be chanted. When you come to this section, the Ya Devi section, you actually are offering 3 ahutis for the second line. So you chant the first line and then you say Namastasye and then Swaha. And then again, Namastasye, Swaha. And then finally, Namastasye, Namo Namas, Swaha. So because there are 3 Swahas per line, I've broken it up a little bit so that it's easier to see that when you're chanting for Homa. But right now, because we're learning as Parayanam, just pretend those swahas aren't there and pretend the line is all one line. So that'll be clear when we do the example. All right, so I'll do the line starting with Ya Devi, and Rupalata Amma, you can repeat that one, okay? Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु या देवी सर्वभूतेषु.
Good. Just make sure that you're chanting in Devi. That V is dirgha. It's a long vowel. So Ya Devi, Ya Devi. So don't make that V like a short I sound. Okay. Next part. Vishnu Mayeti Shaptita.
Vishnamaye Shaptida. Vishnamaye Shaptida.
Good. Now the whole line. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Vishnu Mayeti Shaptita.
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु विष्णुमायेति शक्तिदा. या देवी सर्वभूतेषु विष्णुमायेति शक्तिदा.
Good. And so one other tricky part about these lines, all of these lines, the bhuteshu, that final shu is a short one. So we don't want to have any pause or lengthen that one. So it's like Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Vishnu Mayeti Shabdita. So make sure that Bhuteshu, that shu should be a short vowel. Okay?
Can I repeat it once more?
Sure.
या देवी या देवी सर्वभूतेषु विष्णुमायेति शक्तिदा.
Exactly. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, so now the next line. Namastasyai, namastasyai.
Namastasyai, namastasyai. Namastasyai, namastasyai.
Namastasyai, namo namaha.
Namastasyai, namo namaha. Namastasyai, namo namaha.
Good, now the whole line. Namastasyai, 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 namo namaha.
Namastasyai, नमस्तास्यै नमो नमः नमस्तास्यै नमो नमः
Good. So I think for the rest, we won't go over that line because it just repeats. We'll only practice the first line of each sloka. So now what I'll do is I'll just go back to the 13th and just do a review, chanting by myself of those two shlokas. Ati samyati rautrayai natastasyai namo namaha namo jagat pratisthayai devyai krityai namo namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Vishnumayeti Shaptita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Okay, just give me 1 second. I have to reply to something. Okay. Okay, so Sriji, do you want to repeat the lines?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Next one. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Chetanetyabhidhiyate
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु चेतनेत्यभिधीयते या देवी सर्वभूतेषु चेतनेत्यभिधीयते.
And also for these lines, we'll go by the full line since it's the same pattern and we're pretty used to it. Okay, next one. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Buddhirupena Samsthita
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु बुद्धिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु बुद्धिरूपेण संस्थिता.
Next one. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Nitrarupena Samsthita
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु निद्रारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु निद्रारूपेण संस्थिता.
Next one. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Kshudharupena Samsthita
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षुधारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षुधारूपेण संस्थिता.
So the only tricky part in this section is that sometimes the one changing word will start with a kanjan and then there's holding. So you get into this pattern of chanting it the same way, but then you have to notice that all of a sudden, when there needs to be holding in the middle of the line, you have to remember that. Okay, like this one. Bhute shuk shudha. Bhute shuk shudha. Okay, now the next line. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Chaya Rupena Samsthita
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु छायारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु छायारूपेण संस्थिता.
So in this one, chaya is starting with only a single sound. So there, I thought I heard.
In this book, Ekta, they have put a small cha and the big cha, like as a conjunct.
Oh,
So Shuchaya, that's how it is in the book. They made it one word and
oh,
put that in the.
and it's Gita.
So should it just be Bhuteshu Chaya, is it?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
But is that Gita Press?
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
The Gita Press
Um,
one.
okay, so we can research that a little bit. I'm used
Okay,
to
sure.
just the chaya, but yeah, I'll look at that
So we
again.
can follow your version for now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but we'll research that a little bit. Okay. All right, next line. या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शक्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शक्तिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शक्तिरूपेण संस्थिता.
Next one. या देवी सर्वभूतेषु तृष्णारूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु तृष्णारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु तृष्णारूपेण संस्थिता.
And if anyone is using the Tamil script, you just have to notice that Trishna, that R is not the consonant, it's the vowel version. So that's why there's no holding on Trishna. Okay, next one. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Kshanti Rupena Samsthita
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता.
Next one. या देवी सर्वभूतेषु जातिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु जातिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु जातिरूपेण संस्थिता.
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु लज्जारूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु लज्जारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु लज्जारूपेण संस्थिता.
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता.
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु श्रद्धारूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु श्रद्धारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु श्रद्धा रूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु कान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु कान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु कान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु लक्ष्मीरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु लक्ष्मीरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु लक्ष्मीरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु वृत्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु वृत्तिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु वृत्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु स्मृतिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु स्मृतिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु स्मृतिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु दयारूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु दयारूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु दयारूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु तुष्टिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु तुष्टिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु तुष्टिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु मातृरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु मातृरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु मातृरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु भ्रान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु भ्रान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता या देवी सर्वभूतेषु भ्रान्तिरूपेण संस्थिता
I think that's a good place to stop for tonight because that's the end of that particular pattern. And then it changes and there's only a few more shlokas in the song. So there was one little thing I just wanted to mention before we end, which is that there's one other way to chant this section, the section that has all the shlokas with the Namastasye, Namastasye line, which I only learned about very recently, but apparently Ramesh Aya has people chanting this in a way where you repeat the first line 3 times, and after the first time you just say Namastasye, and the second time you say Namastasye, then the third time after you repeat that line you say Namastasye Namo Namaha. So I only want to mention that in case if you're listening to any recitation that he's doing with his students, you might hear things chanted in that way, and just so that you're aware that that's one other variation of how to chant this section. All right, so we'll stop there. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you for joining the class and see you next time.